Good evening and welcome to Watchmen on the Wall. We're standing in front of the red carpet for the gala event for the MeCAHT conference. And I'm standing here with Esther. We've spoken to so many people today, so many different organizations that have collaborated together to make everyone aware of human trafficking and, all the different success stories. Esther, you want to share a bit about who you spoke to and how it touched you?
Well, I have just been touched by all the different stories. And one thing that just stands out for me is that so many different organizations, but we all have one goal, and that is that fight against human trafficking. And I was especially touched by one story. And one of the victims out of human trafficking, her story is it's devastating, but it gives hope at the same time. And just for her to come out of a situation like that, and how God actually came through, rescued her, and now she turns it around and rescues others by making a movie and fighting that battle of human trafficking.
Okay, we're speaking to Anne Abok, who is the International Director of Media Campaign Against Human Trafficking. So, Anne, how did you get involved with MeCAHT?
Actually, I got involved with fighting human trafficking because of my heart for nation building. And God opened my eyes to see the issues that break down the walls of our society, and human trafficking is actually one of those things. And when we have a society that is broken down without walls, we have a society that's exposed to disgrace and to shame and to reproach, and then it looks like very far from God's glory. And I'm a media person, and I felt like God was saying, what do you have in your hands? Because that's what I will use to help you influence in this darkness of human trafficking. And that was how I got involved in the fight.
Okay, and then you also said that because of your background in media, you've also done a few short films that tell stories about trafficking. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes, so ever since we started looking at the issue of human trafficking, we've done documentaries. We actually started in 2008 with documentaries which we shot in Nigeria and in Germany. So we went into the trafficking headquarters in Nigeria, which is called Benin City, and we shot documentaries there, and we now follow the stories to Germany, Berlin, and Frankfurt, and it was there that the federal German police told us that 80% of the illegal African prostitutes in Europe come from Nigeria, from Benin City. So we kind of follow the stories of these girls and how they are trafficked from their rural villages and sold as sex slaves in Europe. So that was our first set of documentaries. And after that, the stories that we collected from the documentaries, in 2010, we got into partnership with a Christian organization from Denmark. It's called Church Integration Ministries. And we decided to use those stories that we got from the phase of research and documentary making to produce a full-length film, which is called Europe in My Heart. And we had actors from Nollywood, which is the Nigerian film industry. It's the third largest film industry in the world, actually. So we had actors from Nollywood play in this Europe in My Heart film we shot in Nigeria and in Denmark. Edited it in South Africa. And so that was our second production. And we have Portia, which we shot in South Africa. We have My Story, which is a story shot also in South Africa, based on the whole issues of Ukutwala, which is the child bride marriage. It's also another face of human trafficking. And then we have other documentaries, like the list is endless.
Okay, and then also we know that, it's a phenomenon that we're not really all that aware with about men being trafficked. You said from Nigeria into South Africa under the lure of playing soccer here in South Africa. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so actually on the streets, because we have with Media Campaign Against Human Trafficking, our outreach arm is called the Treasure Project, which will go out to reach the victims of prostitution and trafficking on the streets with the love of Jesus. And one of the nights we were on the street and we're trying to speak to this girl who looked like she was listening to us, but some other person was stopping her from talking to us. And it turned out that we went to this person and approached him, and he was Nigerian. And I went, wow, you're Nigerian. And then we led him to the Lord that night, and we discovered that he also was trafficked to come to South Africa, and the whole thing about coming to play soccer in South Africa. And that was how we started working with him and discovering that, in the past we used to just say we have compassion for the girls and we need to get the pimps, the traffickers, and, just really almost you feel like you want to kill them because of what they've done. But really God died for them too, and he loves them. And that's how God changed our hearts. And we started seeing the other side of it, that they are also victims needing help. And so we started reaching out to them, and we're seeing them come to the Lord.
Wow, that's amazing, and that's one part of trafficking that we don't really see and we don't really get made aware of. We always talk about women being trafficked and children being trafficked, and yes, that is sad and it is happening, but it happens to men as well.
Exactly. It happens to men, and for them, they use them as pimps or drug dealers. So they also have another person who the trafficker, they have their trafficker over them that they have to report to, they have to give money to, and that sort of exploitation taking place.
Okay, so and the films and the documentaries you spoke about, how do we get hold of them and any contact information?
We actually, we distribute them ourselves for now. We're working at getting a distributor, but so long, people can reach us on MeCAHTAfrica@gmail.com. MeCAHT is MECAHT. Once we get the email, we'll make arrangements and you'll have the copies of the films.
We're speaking to Pam Zakufa from Zakufa Media Productions. And Pam, you have been involved with making of trafficking films or films educating, making the public aware about human trafficking and the situation. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, I've been in the media industry for 13 years now. And I felt that I have to give back to my community, like in Khayelitsha in South Africa as well. And I've decided, because I've seen a lot of abuse in the area with alcohol and drugs and women, so I've decided to make an awareness against human trafficking, against prostitution, and against child abuse, and substances as well. So I've decided the only way I know how is to use my experience in the media industry. And then I've decided to make some films and tell stories of South Africa, South African stories, African stories, and stories what are happening around us in Africa, like Ukutwala. So I've written a movie called Fumanekile, and that Fumanekile is a young lady who was sold by an uncle to a 40-year-old man without their parents' consent. So that's the movie that I've done.
And what has the response been to it? Has it been out for a while, or?
It has just been released now in the conference, and people liked it and they want it. And some of the people were quite shocked that these things are happening around us. Even the pastors were saying, "Thank you for opening our eyes." So I'm quite grateful to be able to open people's eyes and give that kind of information.
Thank you so much, Pam. I think we need more producers like you producing films like this. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much.
I'm here with Timothy on the red carpet of the Human Trafficking Conference. Timothy, what brings you here at the conference?
Well, I'm here as one of the participants of the conference, and I'm here as one of the actors in the short movie that was made.
So what are you participating in?
Well, I'm an actor in the film called Portia, and I happen to be the pimp in the film. So my name is Phil. Actually, my name is Timothy, but I'm acting the part of Phil, a Nigerian pimp.
So it's based on a true life story?
It is based on true life stories.
Was it based on your story?
It wasn't based actually on my story. It was based on a Nigerian guy's story who happens to be a pimp, but unfortunately it can't be part of the movie. So I was called upon to act as him in the movie.
How was it to play such a heavy role?
Well, I have a little experience. I'm not a pimp, but I used to be a club DJ before I found Jesus Christ. And so I happen to know a little bit about the streets and what happens to be a pimp. So they actually called me because of my background and said, okay, I think you will be the right candidate for this. And I see it as a necessary thing to do.
How was life for you living on, you were a DJ and you knew the streets. How was life for you then?
Life wasn't so easy, but there are some things you enjoy, some of the benefit that comes with it because you are being famous. Everybody looks at you as if you are somebody because everybody celebrates you being a nightclub DJ. You are the in guy. But at the end of the day, you discover that you're actually not an inside because a lot of lives are being destroyed. Seeing what happens to the girls that are trafficked and girls that comes from a good home into the nightclub and what happens to them. It's very very bad story to say about it.
So you can identify with the movie that you were in?
I very much identify with the movie that I'm in, and I'm so grateful to be part of it.
Okay, so this is going out to a bigger audience. But what about your own daughter? What are you teaching your daughter?
Well, I teach my daughter self-esteem. I try to motivate her to study hard. I do all the best I can to see that she got all the necessary things the father could provide. I pray for my daughter so much, and I try to give her a good environment where she can grow.
How can a daughter, a young girl that stands in front of a pimp or somebody that does human trafficking, how can she pick up the signs? What are you teaching her now to prevent her or anyone to be lured into that?
I try to educate my daughter that whatever glitter is not gold, and somebody shouldn't dangle anything into you and you run onto it. So I try to encourage her, educate her on everything we've learned. Anna's given me so many tools about human trafficking, and those are what I used to tell her, that look, anybody shouldn't just come to you and say, listen, I want to take you to this place, I want to buy you this, I want to take you on a tour to Europe or to America, and you run into it. Your education, when you get proper education, that's enough to take you to wherever you want to be in life. Nobody should dangle anything to you and say, come, I'm taking you to Europe. Your certificate should be able to take you to wherever you want in life.
Now, have you experienced the world of human trafficking yourself in somehow? Or is it more you've seen the problem and you want to be a part of a solution?
Well, I've met so many friends that told me about, that identify with what is happening. They've given us a large sum of money. I've seen parents that sold their homes, their property in Nigeria to send their children or to give it to somebody who's going to traffic their children to oversee. So I identify and I know exactly what is happening about it. So when Anne called upon me for this, I said, okay, I think I can be part of this to see that it stopped.
And do you feel that you being part of it's going to make a difference? One person can make a difference?
One person, each one of us, if we take the mantle, I want to bring difference to this, I think it's going to work. So my message to everybody out there is, let's do all we can to stop this.
Let's do all we can to stop this. Thank you very much for this interview, Timothy.
Thank you so much.
I'm here with Griselda Grootboom, and we're at the Human Trafficking Conference. Griselda, where are you from?
I am from Cape Town. Grew up in Cape Town. Now staying at Khayelitsha.
Staying in Khayelitsha. Well, I just saw you on the cover of a DVD, a short movie, right?
Yeah, it's Portia. It's my life story, and it's a short film where you're just trying to make an awareness of human trafficking and prostitution. Yeah.
Okay, so before we go there, I just want to know, when you were a little girl, what was your dream?
My dream was to sing and act. And thanks to MeCAHT and Anne Naboko, even through the journey I'm at, and right now that she could break through for me and make that testimony become my dream also at the same time. So yes, acting was also a great part of me. I never got any training or skills to do the movie. We just did it, I guess also because of the journey of the movie, yeah.
So your dream was to become an actor, but you probably never could foresee this kind of story.
Yeah, I never thought I had to act out my own story, being an actor as my dream. So that's just another way God works, when he says he wants you to be and mold you, and he has created you before. So obviously my first act is out of my own testimony.
So could you tell us what the story is about?
The story is scary about how I got into human trafficking, but most of all, how the prostitution has overtaken me and how the pimps abuse you, not getting the money, and the drug use in it. So the film itself, it's mostly about me being a prostitute and being under the authority of a pimp. So, yeah.
So what happened in your youth or early in your childhood? When and what happened?
It was just a crazy pattern. Like, I think it's every youth girl sometimes go through. You're in a local community, struggle community, you get gang raped. From there, your family doesn't like what you brought the shame over them, and obviously you go into prostitution because of anger, so you grow up in the streets, and then from there, in prostitution, as you starting to get to know prostitution, you get human trafficked by friends.
Now, where you grew up, was that like a norm? The gangs and rape?
Oh yeah, definitely. The gang rape, I mean, when it happened to me, it was a norm because the community was aware of, oh, you know, the boys that we know, they're in our streets, and they were there. And when it happened, they knew what was happening. And even when I came back from that shack and walking back home, it was a shame. And yeah.
Why isn't the community doing anything about this?
I don't know. Is it because it's their own boys or girls, or it's for them a shame? And then most of all, I mean, most of our youth are mostly introduced now so quickly to alcohol and drugs, so you can reach that. But I also think it's in the family. You know, family values is most important. If your mom cannot tell you that you're wrong, then obviously nobody else will, and you wouldn't listen to anybody else. Yeah.
So what happened from the period of the gang rape until that moment you're getting human trafficked?
Obviously, from the gang rape, you know, my mom didn't want to get to know me at all, so I had to run. And I ran in the wrong hands, and then from the wrong hands straight into human trafficking. And then, you know, the minute you become human trafficking, and your value goes low because you're not worth anymore, you go straight into prostitution because you feel that shame and disgrace. So you go into prostitution clearly because you want to get some drugs to keep away the pain. And that was it. And then that's how it went.
So you ran into the hands of human traffickers. Did you recognize anything? Was it what did they say? How come they could lure you in that?
Because of my desperation of just trying to get out and get a better opportunity, I think they came and paint that picture, made me look like there is something better. I can get you a better job, I can get you a better place to sleep, I can get you better for that. And we always the vulnerable ones that when you come from pain, you would do anything to be in somebody's arms. And especially when they paint that picture in your face, like I can give you a better life and I will make sure nobody hurts you. And that's what we thought. And not really. You're just going to be put in a dark room and your mouth will be taped and your hands will be cuffed down. And whoever comes in does what he does.
Wow. So you were in an empty room, dark, taped. What was going inside of you?
I think coming from the gang rapes already, it was like, you know, I was already numbed. You know, my mind was out, my spirit was out, nothing was worth it. So whenever, you know, I couldn't keep count of whatever man I slept with, so you just numb, you just switch your mind off and think of something else. And if so, you probably high on something. If not so, you just numb.
Were there more girls with you?
I remember just being on my own in a room, and then I think being raped or sexually abused at that particular time in that room. I was taken out, and other girls and younger girls were coming.
Was this man from Cape Town, or would you say all over the world?
All over the world. Mostly, I think it was our African men also that would just do what they do, and then now and again you see different nationalities too.
Now, was this close by your house, or is there an area? It's so hidden. Where were you?
My house was in the township, so it was out of the township. It was more in the city. And also from town, it probably took me to Joburg also, because you do get traffic literally transportally wise also. Another pimp speaks to another pimp and they negotiate as if you're a product or something.
Now, what was the lowest moment in your life at that moment of time?
Well, I hope television viewers don't mind. Just being molested and knowing there's other three men waiting, and while they are waiting, all whatever semen is falling on your head or your face because they're masturbating while the other person is busy. And that was the lowest, because you just smell. And then the smell of semen all over you for like a week or so. So I still go through those moments sometimes in the bath.
Wow. So at that moment, was there a way out for you? Did you think this is going to be your life?
Yeah, I mean, every day I would think whoever comes, I hope he comes with a knife or a gun and get over and done it, because you're basically killing my spirit, but you're not killing me. So I'd always, whatever violent moment, because we did get violent moments sometimes where we don't want to do stuff, and I would you know, when it goes on more than 2 or 3 guys in 1 hour, then you're like, why don't you just stab me or kill me? So at every time it does happen, you actually do wish that happened.
For how many years did this go on?
Wow. I mean, from the age of 9 upwards to the age of 26. Yeah.
And how old are you now?
I'm 33.
So what happened when you were 26? It's obvious you were standing here, you got out. What happened?
The turning point was clearly when a pimp and his madam, you know, felt like this is the week of hard work. A lot of foreigners are in town, and we were in the house, and I was really, really tired. And not just that, I just came back from a very 3-month of abortion that she forced me into. So that medication and everything happened too. So when that happened during the week, the same weekend, I was very tired and obviously not well, bled out. And I kept on saying that to her the whole Friday night. And then, yeah, that's when she decided and her husband to beat me up. And unconsciously, I was dropped in a local tavern somewhere. And then I was picked up by the hospital, and then I woke up after a month.
So in that hospital, that was actually your way out?
In the hospital was because I was like, you know, nobody came, and the hospital were the only people, and obviously the people that would come and pray now and then for those who don't have families and everything.
So people came in to pray for you?
Yeah, and the church that prayed for me that particular day, I think that's when I woke up. And one of them said, we can help you to a home of hope, and that's where it happened.
How was your trust level at that time?
It's still like that. It's still, with the movie or so, it was a hectic moment where you still have to think, okay, am I going to be doing this whole movie with these people? Are they legit? Are they true? Are they right? Are they of God? Is it because they're trying to do the testimony because of the glory of God, or is it just another movie? So the trust level was very, very hard to trust anybody. Even if you're there to help me or change me, I would still feel, listen, the bed and the food is okay for now, so give me some time, you know. And volunteers would come from all levels of the country and the world, but I would still feel like I need time.
So you mentioned the word God. Who was God and who is he for you?
Wow, he's my father, because even in the times of whatever I went through, it was times where I would say God, and why? Because at that time you just have nobody to talk to. Nobody wants to talk to you, actually. And you just ask, why God? And I don't know, every time I ask his name, it's just why. So to me right now, he's like, I lay my life for you. He's greater than what people think he is. He's much better. You talk to him, you whisper, you scream, and he still holds you. So he is everything to me.
Now, going through what you went through and where you're standing now, what is your message to young girls in Kailicha or in shacks? What is your message?
I would say to them that nobody knows you better than God. Nobody knows you better than God. So whatever you're going through, whatever you've lost, if you're a mother, if you're a daughter, if you're a girl, if you're a woman, and you know him, hold on. Like carry it like you carry your handbag, because we women never leave the handbag. And nobody knows you better than him. He is Rapha, he's Jehovah, he's who he says he is in the word. So it's hurting, it's painful. I mean, you read his word, you do hear that the world is not of his, but we are not also from the world. So stick to it, no matter how much it hurts. And you find it the minute you go through a pain of rape or a father or a friend does hurt you. Try to report it, but I know it's hard, because nobody understands when you cover your head with a blanket and you wish everything was dark and your dreams and dignity were all taken away by just a sexual abuse. So try to him only.
Okay, so very practically, you came from a lot of pain. How did you turn to God? Where did you find the courage to trust him?
When the hospital and I saw people praying for me, I think the first thing I asked is like, why do they do that? Why are you here to pray for me? And the one lady just answered and said, because the Lord still wants you to be around. So when she said that, I kept that in my mind. The journey of change is not easy still, because you obviously go through a lot of health matters and you discover you have HIV and all of those. So you need to get back to all those things. So, but the more I kept it that in my head, what she said, it's what kept me going and what's still keeping me going up to this day.
So what is the vision with this movie?
The vision of this movie is basically to show youth, as much as I've wanted to be an actress at a younger age, and I'm only now an actress, I wouldn't say that I would have loved to be an actress in my testimony or my journey, about my journey, but it is to show there is always a way out. There's no such that it's not impossible. It is. No matter what that person says to you that it's not possible, it's a lie. Because it is. For you, whatever situation you're in, please remember that your dreams are like the stars. They still out there. They shine. Because every night when you look up, there's still a star shining. And you are still that star.
How can we find those girls? There's people watching and there's girls being abused right now. Where are they? How do we find them?
We are in our families, in our communities, in our schools, at our workplaces. They're everywhere. And there's one thing I picked up from the youth of girls, young girls, when I go to schools and talk to them, and I'll think like, why would you feel that you want to be better than the other girl? And it will just be the answer of, she doesn't like me, or that love they don't have amongst each other, and that pressure. It's a simple reason, which is the same thing that Jesus Christ said, love each other. And I'd always ask them, why wouldn't you hug or talk to another girl? I'm like, no, it's just we don't connect because of that love for each other. So, and it's also to do with family values, because when I got gang raped, my mother just rejected me and she felt I've been disgraced. So it's also about the family, that you can't even go to a mom or aunt or anybody. Yeah.
Griselda, how do you show love?
I show love to letting you know that I'm listening and how beautiful you are and how great a future you have in front of you. And looking into your heart and seeing that you are greater. There's no other than you. You're unique. I mean, your eyebrows are better. I'm like, sometimes I sit with some youth girls and I would try to let them know that I would look and observe how they interact with each other. And when I come back, I'll be like, did you know that you have something different in her? And do you know your difference to her? It's like such a busy, unique thing. And imagine if you have to put it together, it will bring such beautiful colors. And that's how I show love to the youth out there.
Okay, Griselda, so I've been listening to you. I think you're beautiful and unique. You have a great message, and I really applaud you for your courage. It's beautiful. I just want to give you a hug. Thank you.
You are not for sale. Actually, Vito used to work for me, and I was the one that organized for you to be brought down from the Eastern Cape. A group of Christians led me to the light. I became convicted about the many lives I have destroyed. I met Jesus. I also got a job. I do airport pickup for the ministry. You are a treasure. You are not for sale. Forgive me, Portia. Let me help you.
My name is Lerato.
We are speaking to March Ballin, and we're here at the Human Trafficking Conference. March, what organization are you from?
I am from Inter Outreach Ministries. It's an organization that I started, and it's been going for quite a long time.
So quite a long time. How long ago have you started the ministry?
The actual ministry working with prostitutes, where I registered as an NPO, I started in 2000, and I started the Safe House in 2001, but I closed it in 2011.
Okay, because there is a need for safe houses.
There is certainly a need, but I felt that the Lord said you need to pass on the baton. You need to train others to do the work that you're doing. So I started doing training courses. I also have written a book which is going to be published, which is about how I did it and what I did.
Now, what could, I would assume you work with a lot of organizations together. What could a normal woman, a student, what can they do?
Well, as Christians, they can pray, first of all. I think become aware. There needs to be far more awareness of what is happening in the world as far as trafficking goes. You know that during the slave trade, when slavery was legal, the transatlantic slave trade, there was, they say, approximately 11 million slaves. Today, there's over 27 million people being trafficked. It has definitely grown since I last heard that it was 27. So it's something that is growing globally. It's supposed to be the third largest money-making crime in the world, next to drugs and weapons. And so it's an easy way for crime syndicates and gangsters to make money. And so it must be stopped.
And they call it the modern slavery of this time.
Yes, absolutely. It is slavery.
So if all those organizations that are involved in human trafficking, because it's a whole network, they work together, why should we as churches, government, foundations work together?
Because it's the only way to do it. You know, the word needs to be spread. Finances need to be made available, as in any project that's taking place. There needs to be finances. Workers need to be supported. And so, absolutely, more and more people need to get behind this and be involved.
I'm here with Karen, and we're here at the Human Trafficking Conference. Karen, where are you from?
I'm from Denmark.
Denmark, Europe.
Yes, I'm living in the capital of Denmark, Copenhagen.
And from which organization are you, and what brings you here?
I work in an NGO organization, KIT. It's a church integration ministry. And we work with two different things. The migrants coming into Denmark, it's 10% of the population today. But my main focus is on trafficking.
And so trafficking would be your focus. Why?
Yeah, why? I met some of the trafficked girls in the migrant churches. And they were there, the trafficked girls, singing in the choir, and thought, wow, how can that be? So I got interested. And then I started to know a little bit more about the human trafficking problem. And I thought, either do I go all in or I go all out of this business, because it was a little bit scaring for me. But it took my heart. And then a year and a half ago, we started a night light cafe in Copenhagen, where we invite the trafficked girls from Nigeria into this cafe. We serve a cup of coffee and fruit and that kind of things. And then we talk to them, and if they want our help or with any counseling or prayer or whatever, then we are there for them.
Will this problem of human trafficking ever be solved?
I don't think so, because it has always been there. It will probably always be there. But I think we can do at least something. We cannot do everything, but every person, each one of us can do a little bit. And if we are there for the one, then little by little, yes, we can make a difference.
So the person that is watching you speak right now, what can that person do? How can someone be involved in the work that you do?
I think to get more knowledge about it, and by that create awareness, talk about it at the schools, at the gymnasiums, at the working place, in the neighborhood, and so on. So we will more and more people will be aware of this huge problem, the third biggest problem in the world today. So create awareness and stand up for the girls, and at the political level and at the level where you work and live in your daily life.
What is your personal vision of that one Nigerian girl that touches your heart, walks in? What is your vision? Where do you want that girl to be in a couple of years from now?
I want her to get her identity back and her dignity, and I want to see her reintegrated into society and with family and friends and learning skills, so she is able to create her own life and a good future, and then stand up for women who today is involved with human trafficking. That is my dream for the one.
Karen, thank you very much for the interview and all the best in the work that you do.
Thank you.
Salome, so tell us more about how you got involved in anti-human trafficking with the Safe House and even this event.
So I started with Escape 1 month after the first woman moved in the home. And since then, I'm part of that Safe House. I'm the operations manager, like you mentioned already. And before I came to South Africa, I worked in Amsterdam for 2.5 years and was reaching out there to the women in prostitution. And that's where God really stirred up my heart of actually establishing a home for victims who come out of human trafficking. And after I did a counseling school, I got connected with Miriam, who is the founder of Escape, and I knew that's going to be the next step for me.
Okay, well, that's brilliant. So, can you share maybe just one or two of the success stories that have come out of the Safe House, or just more your involvement and your experiences in there?
One success story, let's call her Belinda. She's up from Johannesburg, and she grew up in a very rural area. And for her, life was very tough. But then one day, her friend came and she said, "You know what, Belinda? I have an amazing job for you. Down in Cape Town, my boyfriend is running a restaurant and you can work there. And the money which you earn, you can send back to your family." And for her, it sounded like too amazing. So she was like, "Yes, sure, I'm coming down." When she reached Cape Town, she found herself in a brothel and needed to sleep with 10 to 30 men a night. She tried to run away because she just couldn't cope with everything what she was facing there. But then the traffickers, they found her and they beated her and locked her up for a whole week in a room. After that, they said, "Okay, if you submit, we send you back." And she was like, "Okay, I'm going out." And then she opened up to one of her clients, and he basically got beat the praise. He brought her to the police station, and from there she was brought to us, figuring out that she was HIV positive and that she was pregnant. And yes, it was, first of all, it was very, very difficult to deal with that. But the great thing is that she actually encountered God, and that even though she was battling with the thought of abortion, her child is now 3 years old. And she just recently got connected with one of our staff members and said, "Hey, I'm so grateful that I encountered God and He's my strength." And these are the successful stories which keeps us going, where we know, yes, sometimes we don't see all the time successes and it's difficult, but it's a seed which we can plant, and that's the beautiful thing about it.
Wow, that's amazing how it ended up. You know, a lot of the time I think that we are so, the whole idea of human trafficking is so glamorized, and we think it's this international problem that doesn't really affect us. And although it is international, it does affect us from home. I mean, this woman you say was trafficked from Joburg to Cape Town. And I mean, what she had to go through, that trafficked is still trafficked no matter how you look at it.
Another story is that I'm often going as well to the township, and I'm ministering there to people. And yes, it's only 15 minutes away from where I live in Mussenberg. And what happened is that one day we were doing outreach and we were doing like door-to-door evangelism. And then the people tell us, "Have you found a job? We want to start working tomorrow." And we tell her, "Okay, what kind of job?" And it just showed us once again the desperation of the people. And she was like, "Well, I don't know, but I just know it's a job and I'm getting money and I can help my family." in the end, we told her, hey, please call these people, ask more questions. And she said afterwards, hey, if you wouldn't have told me, I would have ended up in human trafficking. So really, it's happening just around the corner. Yes, I shared before about Johannesburg and down here, but it's happening globally. Like, people are brought into South Africa to keep here, but people are taken as well, for example, to Amsterdam or to other places beyond South Africa.
So, Salome, a lot of the times we think that trafficking is so this international problem, and it's very much glamorized in a sense, that it doesn't affect us here at home, that, within South Africa, but someone can even be trafficked within our borders, like you mentioned with the story with Belinda. I mean, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, since we opened our house in March 2011, we had almost 50 women, and most of them were South Africans. Yes, we had as well victims who came from other countries like Nigeria, Thailand, and so on, but as well people who actually were trafficked from South Africa to South America and then got rescued over there and brought back. So it's a global issue. South Africa is used to bring girls in, but as well to bring girls to other countries.
So Salome, I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel that trafficking is increasing in South Africa? Is it decreasing? How can the government, law officials, and even everybody do more to combat trafficking?
So it's definitely increasing. If you think about the economic state of this country, so often, and it really pains me if I think about it, parents are in so desperate need that they are thinking, okay, do we have to sell our kids, or do we sell our family member? Or how can we get to money? Parents are ending up in alcoholism, drugs, and so on. And that's often the easiest way to actually get money. So in that sense, yes, it is increasing.
So now in South Africa, since I think last year, we have a comprehensive legislation to actually combat trafficking. It's called the Prevention and Combating Trafficking in Persons Bill. And even though it's been approved and signed off by President Zuma, has it really been implemented? Do you feel that that's been done?
I think we are very much in the beginning stage, and it definitely needs to be implemented more. But for us, even as a safe house, it's already a victory to see that there is finally, after such a long time of a battle, that there is finally a law. And yes, I believe personally that it still needs some time to be implemented. But we are praying for that process and that God really will speed it up.
You're joining us here in Sea Point, Cape Town with the A21 Campaign Walk for Freedom, joined by hundreds of other people who have come together in support of the A21 Campaign's Walk for Freedom to abolish slavery in the 21st century. Katie, we're wanting to know a bit more about, what's happening at the ground, like how is for example, the TIP, the tip bill, is it being implemented? Is it really affecting the human trafficking issue? What's happening?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I think it was 3 weeks ago we were actually up in Pretoria for the National Strategic Forum, the NICTIP Forum, and we were actually part of that forum a year ago, just before the bill was signed, and they've re-had the forum again, and it's so awesome to see how government has actually taken so many of the inputs and the suggestions that we made for this strategy. And basically this strategy document is going to be what is guiding our whole country and how do we implement this bill. So from things like translators to 48-hour victim assistance houses to how we interview victims, all of those things have been taken into the strategic document. And it was just a really powerful moment and really exciting to see that it wasn't just a conference for a conference, it wasn't just a strategic plan to have a meeting, but they've actually really taken a lot of the meat that we have as NGOs, as locals on the ground, as civil society, as government departments. They've really taken our inputs, and it's so exciting. So it's just really great to see forward motion. Obviously, we would love to see a date on the bill. There's no date yet. We're believing that before the end of the year, there will be an actual implementation date on the bill. We all know it's been signed, which means we have it as a law, but it's just not used in the court yet. So we would love to see that by the end of the year. There are rumors that by 16 days of activism, that you never know if you can trust the rumor mill. So we'll see. But that's just really exciting.
Wow, that is exciting. And it's so good to hear that after all those protests, marching to Parliament, handing over memorandums memorandums and, all the effort that went into the bill itself, even though it took so long that it's finally going to be implemented. And we really hope that it is implemented before the end of this year. Yeah. And what's happening on the ground? I mean, do you think trafficking is increasing? Do you think it's decreasing? Do you think people are being more aware of what's happening in terms of being able to protect themselves and their families against it?
I think that's a chicken and egg question. Is trafficking happening more, or are we just more aware of it? The key that we know is it still happens. So we are seeing more and more cases come out every year. This year alone, we've worked with over 20 cases this year alone, and that's small compared to how many victims there are in South Africa. But we've been able to work with victims on the ground, and we actually just see that it is a growing epidemic. And it's not just how many victims are rescued, but we know there are more out there who don't identify themselves as victims, who think that what they are in is their own fault, or that they deserve to be in this lifestyle that they're in, so they wouldn't identify themselves as victims, or that they really actually need assistance. So awareness is so key. We need to do awareness on so many levels, starting from grassroots, people who are at risk of being trafficked. So we're looking at kids who are vulnerable of taking these opportunities. They need to know, what are my rights? What does trafficking look like? When I work, what are my rights when I work? When should I be paid? All those basics, how do I protect myself from being exploited? That is so important. And then also all the way up the rungs, because human trafficking is an epidemic that comes where there is demand, there will be supply. So, if we have people buying cheap labor or expecting cheap labor, employing cheap labor, if we have people demanding sex, at the click of a finger, if we have people clicking on porn, if we have people having slaves in their household, there is always going to be supply for that demand. And because it is so lucrative, it's going to happen. So we need to be raising awareness in the demand side as well, the general population who may be using brothels, who may be, using very cheap services of immigrants who come through and don't have the right papers to work. We really need to be raising awareness to make sure that actually we are being integrous with how we work. We're being integrous with how we live our lives, and making sure that our comfort is not placing someone else in exploitation. So that's awareness all the way through. From protecting myself to actually I'm not being part of the problem, I'm being part of the solution. And I suppose that's what this is here today. Hey, we're coming out and we're saying we believe it's an issue. We're going to take a stand, and we're going to say that you don't have to be a vigilante with a gun, or someone who has to quit their job and move to the other side of the world. You can be a person who is here walking on the promenade. Very easy on a Saturday morning to say I want to make a difference.
A lot of the people we spoke to at the MeCAHT conference, the Media Campaign Against Human Trafficking conference, what came through a lot was also the pressure from families where to go out and get money. And that you find that even people who are involved in the trafficking of these people, and not necessarily victims, as we've come to understand them, that sometimes they are victims of their own circumstances, whether it's the family pressure. One guy said that sometimes the families knew what they were doing, and they said, but look at your neighbor, they could build a house, so why can't you do that for us? So there's that kind of pressure. So how do you think that affects what you're trying to do, with the awareness and that kind of thing?
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's actually something as a campaign that we are trying to look at in the future. It's not just prevention with the knowledge, but prevention from an economic level. As you say, it's economy, it's desperate circumstances that are driving people to this, driving parents to sell a child. But what choice do they have? What choice do they have than to pressure their daughter to go into the sex trade if they are then able to feed the rest of their family, for instance? So it does mean that we need to be doing prevention on a level that is much more fundamental, if you call it. So we actually just partnered with UCT Graduate School of Business, and they had their social entrepreneurship MBA students. They just did a massive debate on, how do we actually prevent trafficking from a grassroots context, South African context level. And we looked at, what kind of economic projects can we start? What kind of sustainable projects can we start that are actually going to lift the economic standard of a community, so that people aren't vulnerable from the get-go because of their circumstances. So it's not just knowledge, but that they're not going to have to resort to that. That obviously is a 10-year plan. That's something that we actually need to be looking at way down the line. But for now, it's good to start thinking about it and looking at the sustainability of how do we as organizations, as businesses, as people in South Africa actually assist with that.
Wow, that's great. That's great to hear that is, because I think, one guy also spoke about, not only the victims or the girls being sold into the sex trade, but also the men and the men of the family who are looked up to as, whether it's the oldest son providing for their family, but then they become traffickers because, they have this business model kind of idea in their head, and they end up, trading in people.
Yeah, exactly. And we just have to give people other opportunities, so they're not having to trade in people, but that there actually are other economic opportunities out there, such as ideas that came up, chicken farming, very sustainable. Veggie patches is something that's done a lot, but if you starting to think like that, big scale, much bigger than just a beading project, which are all very needed, but you hear what I'm saying, lifting the economic standard of a community rather than just one person.
With particular reference to Nigeria and just the problems, you mentioned the economic problems, but, and long-term plan, but what can we do now to kind of combat that, whether it's that mind frame, that the stereotype of sending the men out to go and work and bring money for the family, no matter what the cost, or what can we do now?
It's such a tricky question because you're looking at culture. I'm sure you've heard stats on what's going on in Nigeria, Benin specifically. How families are selling their own children, and that it's actually completely acceptable. It's culture, and it's from a cultural level that we actually need to be instilling this change, that human life is valuable. I don't think there's a quick fix. I don't think there is something that we can do now that's going to change it now. But I think it's if we're aware that this is what is happening in Nigeria, and that's we're actually, as South Africa, if a lot of Nigerians are being brought into South Africa, when we're working with victims, how do we actually assist them and send them back home as advocates for this is wrong? People are valuable. People have they don't have a number value on them, and they cannot be sold. I think it starts there. How do we strengthen from South Africa out? And then obviously as an organization, once we're really strong and grounded here in South Africa, how do we actually go and assist in Nigeria as well? I think it's also, you can look at border control, you can look at, inter-country relations from a government level, how we can be looking at that and assisting there. But that obviously comes on an advocacy level. The thing with trafficking is we like to think of it as an epidemic, not as it is a crime, but if you would think of the HIV epidemic, you have to have long-term goals and actually to see a change, and that's what we see as well with the trafficking happening from Nigeria, with the cultural implications here and over there. We actually really need to have long-term goals and how to see change in this area.
To take a stand against human trafficking, to raise awareness for it. I think a lot of people think that it doesn't happen in South Africa, and we're just saying, hey, it does happen here and we can do something.
We're against human trafficking, that it doesn't only happen in other foreign countries, but it also happens here at home. And it could happen to a sister of mine, it could happen to a cousin of theirs. So it's very personal, it hits home. So one cannot sit idle and think, no, the government will take care of that, or the NGOs will take care of that. Every single person is responsible.
That's our show for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to go to our website, familypolicyinstitute.com. Click on the subscribe button where you can register for our weekly newsletter. Please also remember the latest edition of Joy magazine is now on sale in retail stores right across the country. Please get your copy. Thank you for joining us tonight. God bless you, and remember to keep standing. The Christmas holiday season is fast approaching. And that means it is time for the annual Watchman on the Wall Christmas concert at the V&A Waterfront Amphitheatre in Cape Town. This year, the concert takes place on Sunday, the 14th of December 2014 at 7 p.m. If you are in Cape Town on the 14th of December, make sure you join us at the V&A Waterfront Amphitheatre as we put Christ back into Christmas. Don't miss it.